Everybody was kung fu fighting. Those kids were fast as lightning. In fact, it was a little bit frightening, but they fought with expert timing.
When Kawhi Leonard went down with an ankle injury in Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals, not much was said about the cause of his injury. After all, Kawhi already had a bad ankle that he had injured multiple times, severe enough to cause him to miss Game 6 of their series against Houston. And then he did it again, stepping on the foot of his own teammate on the sidelines. But he was grinding and was a real force, leading his team to a 23-point lead early in the third quarter. That was when Zaza Pachulia closed out to contest a jumper as the shot clock expired and all hell broke loose. Kawhi was out for the rest of the game, needs an MRI, and is already out for Game 2. Of course, the game completely turned around the second Kawhi left the game, and the Warriors won in the final minute. I didn't think much of the Zaza closeout when I recorded my podcast late last night. I would say it's virtually impossible if you're trying to be, dirty. Like, if your head is turned the other way and you're still trying to figure out where that foot is going to land. And I'm choosing to believe that he did not do that on purpose. But I went through the tape again today and I started wondering, maybe this was a dirty play. It seems Spurs coach Gregg Popovich felt the same way.
A two-step lead with your foot closeout is not appropriate. It's dangerous, it's unsportsmanlike, it's just not what anybody does to anybody else.
Did he step under it? Like a purpose? No. He was contesting a shot. It was shot clock was coming down, and I'll have to see the play.
Zaza's not a dirty player. I mean, you got to time that perfectly if you want to, if you want to hurt somebody. I mean, he just tried to contest a shot, man. Guys were playing hard. It was an unfortunate situation. I wish it didn't happen, but I don't think it was intentional.
A totally unnatural closeout that the league has outlawed years ago and pays great attention to it.
Now wait 1 minute. Pop is telling us that the league outlawed sliding under a shooter several years ago, and that is a fact. But do you know why the league instituted this rule? Because of Bruce Bowen, a guy who played for none other than Gregg Popovich. And back then, Popovich went on the record to defend Bowen, since his defensive methods were so effective against the likes of Kobe Bryant and Vince Carter. But check the footage and you'll see lots of consistent dirty play. And there's no way this could be just the random flailing about of a tenacious defender. When Bowen played for Pop, he apparently had no problem with Bowen being Bowen. But when it threatens his own team, quite naturally, it's worthy of calling out a player who is far from innocent in Zaza Pachulia.
But this is crap. And because he's got this history, it can't just be, it was inadvertent. He didn't have intent. Who gives a damn about what his intent was? You ever hear of manslaughter? You still go to jail, I think, when you're texting and you end up killing somebody. But you might not have intended to do that. All I care is what I saw. All I care about is what happened. And the history there exacerbates the whole situation and makes me very, very angry.
So other than the kind of crazy connection between manslaughter and playing dirty, what was this history of Zaza's dirty play that Pop was talking about?
Everybody was kung fu fighting.
Well, there was this flagrant foul while running down court against Luke Babbitt.
In fact, it was a little bit frightening.
And this reverse headbutt on Mirotic in Milwaukee.
With expert timing.
It got serious when he started throwing elbows at David West's face.
There was funky Chinaman from funky Chinatown.
And in that same game, he locked Kawhi's arm and tried to pull him down.
It's an ancient Chinese art, and everybody knew their part.
And earlier this year, he introduced himself to Mr. Westbrook and stood there waiting for him to say hello back. Oh, and there was this flagrant elbow to Patty Mills' head. And it certainly does seem a bit unnatural to step like he did, causing Kawhi's foot to buckle as he landed for the jumper. So, does that make Zaza the dirtiest player in the NBA? When you go back through the archives, you realize there were guys much worse than him, the kind of player who not only played dirty, but didn't try to hide it either. At the top of our list is our old friend, Bruce Bowen, who was the dirtiest player in the game, since he did the exact thing Popovich is accusing Zaza of. Vince Carter was a particular target, and it could not have been a coincidence that Carter sprained his ankle multiple times on jump shots while being defended by Bowen. It's the same type of motion that Pop described with Zaza. The irony here is that Pop defended Bowen's defense when the league decided to crack down on his dirty play. Bowen also did it to Kobe in the 2002 playoffs, sticking his foot out so Kobe would land on it. Or this hip check on the way down. All dangerous moves when a guy is up in the air and needs space to land. So while Pop has a point about Zaza, he can't have it both ways. Defending his ex-player Bowen and calling out Zaza for similar shenanigans doesn't fly. Next up is Bill Laimbeer of the Detroit Pistons. He was the master at the subtle elbows, as Scottie Pippen's face found out, and Robert Parrish let him know what he thought about the high elbows too. Laimbeer didn't disguise his takedown of Larry Bird very well, but he knew what he was doing, and while teammate Rick Mahorn might have not been totally dirty, Laimbeer certainly rubbed off. Next up is a bit of a surprise. John Stockton is a Hall of Famer and one of the all-time greatest point guards, but if Steve Kerr is calling you dirty, then you've got to be dirty.
And he was dirty. I mean, he was, in a good way. Like you wanted to be his teammate.
He tripped people on picks.
And I say it with perfect respect.
Like Laimbeer, Stockton was the master at the undetected, sneaking in elbows whenever he got the chance. As he got older, Kevin Garnett became one of the dirtiest in the NBA, where he looked for any chance to throw a shot in there during the game, pushing the limits to what he could get away with. And he wasn't averse to doing the extracurriculars after play had stopped to goad his opponent into getting thrown out. And in a bit of poetic justice, KG got Pachulia with a solid screen when he wasn't looking. Some of the current players in the league who are considered dirty are guys like Chris Paul, who has made the nut punch a thing on his resume, and that goes all the way back to his Wake Forest days. Zaza's teammate Draymond Green developed a reputation of a kicker, and beware of whatever got in the way as his foot started flailing all around. Plus, he set some screens of the more illegal variety, yet the referees don't seem inclined to call them. And Matthew Dellavedova has gotten his share of anger from Hawks fans for being extra physical in the 2015 playoffs, particularly this play that injured Kyle Korver when he was simply going for the loose ball. There's also Kelly Olynyk, who's slowly accumulating enough dirty plays to make you wonder whether he's playing basketball or kung fu fighting. But the one player whose reputation precedes him these days is J.R. Smith. And even though he's been relatively well behaved over the last year or so, he's got a pretty impressive bunch of clips to establish his dirty bona fides. So in the end, was this a dirty play by Zaza to ensure that Kawhi can't compete? It certainly looks suspicious, and you can't ignore his history of plays that seem designed to cause pain. But he isn't at the top of the list, since Bowen and Laimbeer were far dirtier, far more consistently. Either way, with so much more three-point shooting going on, the NBA must intervene to ensure a safer landing for their shooters. Until then, we'll always have the specter of dirty play hovering over our heads.